What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ, Bucky, Rhett with you as we look back at I would say an interesting slate of Week 10 games. Buck, how are you doing today, man?
Man, I'm great. I am great. Just getting back from Jacksonville. It was a fun-filled football festival on Sunday, watching them fall to the Vikings. So I can't wait to comment all about it.
No Indiana hat for Rhett today, by the way.
We're on a bye week next week. So just
Okay.
on a bye week. So yeah, 10-0, just feeling good, and we'll bring that back ahead of Ohio State week. Don't you worry. I will say this: if we, the late window slate needs to take a page out of the early window slate's book. I mean, because boy, it was kind of a snoozer there with those late afternoon games. But the early window, we had 5 of 7 games decided by one score, and then 6 if you go back to the OT thriller in Munich, right, with the Giants and Panthers, and all of a sudden Bryce Young's a winner in back-to-back weeks. Like, let's go. We got a week here, boys.
By the way, great incentive for folks to stick around for the end of the show because that'll be the last game we talk about, Giants-Panthers. Let's start off with the first game we're going to get into, which is Detroit-Houston, the Sunday nighter, the turnover fest. Buck, I got a chance to see the second half of this one. Rhett had called me when I was driving home, and we were talking about all the turnovers that were taking place in this game. I mean, I think we start there. It's a gritty, gutty win for the Lions, but just your take on all the mishaps in this one.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that during my midseason awards, I didn't go too hard for Jared Goff being MVP because the 5 interception turnover fest just kind of crushed that. The optics of seeing him turn the ball over time and time again certainly won't help him when it comes to that. But I think what it does for us is it allows us to see how good the Lions are. You talk about 5 interceptions from your franchise quarterback, and even though one of those was a Hail Mary, most teams can't overcome that. The fact that they were able to do it and really do it in resounding fashion in the second half not only speaks about the grit and the resiliency and all the toughness that we talk about with the Lions, but their ability to bounce back, find different ways on offense to create scoring opportunities, and then their defense being able to step up and stiffen up. Man, this team has all the makings of being the best team in the league.
Yeah, and again, major credit to them for holding on, right? For just holding on. Every time felt like, you might find something, bang, another turnover happened. And look, 2 of them were tips, right? And one was a Hail Mary. But still, seeing that number is shocking, right? It's shocking to see a quarterback that had been the most efficient quarterback in football all of a sudden start turning it over that way. I mean, I think the last one was probably the worst one that he was trying to throw to Jameson Williams that ends up getting caught way downfield. But the thing that I'm kind of most curious about is where this Texans offense has gone, where the consistency has gone there. And I get it. They've had receivers kind of shuffling in and out of the lineup. Thought maybe Nico Collins was going to be back this week. Couldn't quite get activated with the hamstring injury. Stephon Diggs now out for the year. But I think the one thing that's kind of interesting to me is just how much this Texans team needs the run game to find success this year, which wasn't necessarily the case. I mean, like, they got a good year out of Devin Singletary a year ago, but man, Joe Mixon was bottled up in this game. Aleem McNeil was fantastic on the interior. He was in the backfield all day long, but they couldn't get Joe Mixon going. And so then it just felt like the whole thing was out of sync, and CJ Stroud was under pressure a bunch as he has been this season. So they got to figure some things out here on offense for the Houston Texans.
This one's for Rhett, Buck, because Rhett loves it when I take lyrics of songs and adapt them to the NFL.
Okay.
And I'm watching the cut-ups from that, and all I could think of was Laramie Mistin, Pass Pro today.
Jeremy. Spoken. Yeah, I gotcha.
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
I mean, thank you. I just needed the courtesy laugh. That's all I was looking for.
Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam. Come on. You were in high school.
Yeah.
You were in high school. Come on. What happened to Laramie Tunsil? Rhett, this is your team that you follow.
Yeah.
This is the family affair. What the heck happened to him? He was one of the best tackles in the NFL.
So he's definitely been nicked up this year. I don't know how bad it's been. I don't know how much of it is a product of what we're seeing out on the field right now. But when your best guy is having struggles the way that Tunsil is, it certainly filters through. And they made some changes along the offensive line, moved Juice Scruggs over to left guard, and then it made a change at center there too. So they've had trouble across the board, it's felt like, at different times throughout this season along the offensive line. But that is a that is probably the most alarming thing is right when a player like that is a big piece of the struggles up front when CJ Stroud can't,
premier
you just
talent.
can't count on it, right? That's trouble.
Yeah, that's not good. But again, gutsy win. I was glad you guys mentioned the makeup of those interceptions. As someone who I'm quite certain still holds the San Diego County record for interceptions in one ball game, 6, by the way, if you're counting at home. How do you have 5 or 6 interception games? Here's how you have them. You have them as I did, which was like an interception on a Hail Mary at the end of the half, a fourth and goal interception at the end of the game, a couple like they start adding up when all that weird stuff starts happening. It wasn't quite as bad when I watched the golf cut-ups as I thought it might be just looking at the stat line. And then he made the throws at the end of the game when they needed. So big win for the Detroit Lions. Let's stay, you think about Detroit in the NFC. A team that's not far behind them on their heels is Philly, who's playing really good ball right now against the Dallas Cowboys team that I don't know that we need to spend enough time. I think we already had a funeral for them. I don't really care to even
that's the
Cowboys what's going
on
there.
Misery loves company.
Yeah, it's over. So we don't need to talk much on that side of it. But I do want to talk on the Philly side of it. And Buck, I'll get over to you on this one. Hurts 7 carries, 56 yards, 2 touchdowns. I just think this is like an underappreciated thing in the NFL right now. Derrick Henry's the only runner in the NFL with more touchdowns this year than Jalen Hurts. He's got 10 touchdowns. He's going to put up 15 rushing touchdowns every single year. And if we're going to, you go and look at him, there's 3rd and 2 scramble first down in this game. You obviously get the push. You get a scramble with Lane being able to clear some space for him. He gets a nice run. Then they run QB power in the red zone. Like, it is a major asset to have a quarterback that you can do this with. It feels like, as a high school coach, and I wanted to ask you this, Buck, they can kind of play a high school brand of football with Jalen Hurts.
They absolutely can. And I give them credit because Kellen Moore has, I would say, evolved Jalen Hurts' game even more. When you think about when he first kind of rose to prominence, it was really in a collegiate system. They're running quarterback powers and counters and those things. We're seeing less of that and more of the traditional pro-style offense with a smattering of Jalen Hurts' special plays mixed in there. But this offense has so many weapons. They have so much firepower. You think about Barkley, the 2 wide receivers on the outside, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert to control the middle offensive line. They really can win in a variety of ways. And I know we've kind of penciled in the Detroit Lions as a class of the NFC, but as this team is trending, by season's end, we might be talking about the Philadelphia Eagles being the best team in the NFC and the team that's most likely to challenge in the Super Bowl because they have all the pieces of the puzzles in place, particularly on offense.
This is how they did it, right? This was their blueprint 2 years ago, right? They were a grind it out. Not necessarily grind. I mean, they could still make their hay in the pass game, but like they were definitely, finding production on the ground. 187 yards in this game. Hurts had 56 of them, as you mentioned, DJ, but Saquon Barkley still does his part with 66. And I just feel like that gives them so much more, a wider pathway, right, to victory. And it just feels like with these Nick Sirianni teams, when they found success early in his tenure there in Philly, they were a force to be reckoned with on the ground. Saquon Barkley has brought that back. And then Jalen Hurts with that piece. I mean, the fact that he's got 10 touchdowns this year to count on, 60 points from your quarterback on the ground over the course of the first 10 games is a pretty good deal right there. And obviously still a lot left to go here. So that piece of it, I think, is big. I think on the flip side, also coming back to you on this, DJ, with the Cowboys, Micah Parsons, you had the CeeDee Lamb sunshine issue with the windows. You had Micah Parsons kind of saying, I play for Zach Martin, not necessarily for Mike McCarthy. I know we're not going to spend a lot of time on the Cowboys, but man, it is like everywhere you look, there's a problem. Quarterback, problem. Head coach, problem. Star players, with comments that way, problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how you come back from that.
Well, I was just brought back to a conversation I had just kind of milling around the team out there at training camp and talking to some folks, some inside the organization and others just that are dialed in with the team out at training camp. And a theme kind of emerged because if you remember at that time, we have no Dak Prescott deal. CeeDee Lamb's not there. And then there's the Micah contract that's kind of looming. And it came up in conversation with everyone. It was pretty consistent. They'll get Dak done. That'll happen. They're not going to let Dak leave. He'll get that done. CeeDee Lamb, that's just a matter of time. They'll figure that out. And Micah Parsons, I got a lot of. Well, that's interesting. We'll see. We'll see on that one. And I was just kind of like, I mean, this is a darn good player, but I don't know. It's getting to the point now where this team is this year. They have to make the decision. And Buck, you can put a bow on this for us. And I think that we would all agree it's probably going to be it for Mike McCarthy after this year's over. That's why I don't really want to spend much time on what players and Mike or wherever think of Mike McCarthy. I think that's over. But what is going to be the next step for them is what's the real Cowboys? Is it the team that's had these 12-win seasons, or did they fall off the cliff and this is where they are in reality right now, this team? So are we going to sell off some assets and maybe try and go to the bottom to get back up to the top? Are we going to be arrogant and say we're the Dallas Cowboys? We don't ever do that, and we're just going to pretend everything's fine and we get right back up to being a double-digit win team next year with a different coach? I mean, that's the decision they've got to make, Buck.
Yeah, the decision they have to make is not only like personnel-wise. I think before you even do that, I think you got to figure out what is the culture of this team. And I know that's the buzzword that people get tired of, is thrown out there. But honestly, Michael Parsons gave Exhibit A on bad culture, because some of those comments, they should be internal. They should never hit our ears when you're talking about what you think about your coach, what you think about winning for your teammates and those things. Because what he did is he basically just smudged all of the things that Mike McCarthy has accomplished throughout his career and his time in Dallas. You talk about 3 12-win seasons. DJ, last year, we can go back and look, they probably overachieved to get to 12 wins. And we can talk about the debacle that was the playoffs. I don't know how good this team is, but for Micah Parsons, the big thing is when the next coach or the next whoever's in charge comes in, they got to determine, is the juice worth the squeeze? He's a phenomenal player, but he's also, in my mind, a distracted player when you think about the podcast and all the other stuff that's kind of around him. Everybody loves a personality. Everybody can respect outspokenness. But when it comes at the expense of the team, it's problematic. The Cowboys have to decide who they are, and they have to build it from inside out when it comes to the culture, then find the players that fit that. We'll see if number 11 is a big fit. I love the production. I just don't know if the other stuff you can build around. Yeah.
I'm going to tease the conversation we're going to have coming up a little bit later on, because we're going to look at one team that's got a collective pass rush, and it got me thinking, and it's an interesting conversation. Talk about these elite guys, these elite individual players. A lot of teams in this league are winning with a collection of good and not an individual great. I want to have that conversation later, which, we'll kind of pick up where we left off here. All right, let's flush this conversation. Let's get to another game here with the New Orleans Saints and their new coach.
I know where you're going.
I don't know what we're talking about. I just want to talk about
you
Darren
just had
Rizzi's
to do
first
it.
win. I had to. 20-17. The Saints team that I had seen in person that would look terrible. I mean, I've seen some bad teams this year in person, and I'm sure Bucky has as well. But man, that's a good win for them against the Atlanta Falcons, 20-17. Derek Carr has an efficient day, plays well. They get Darren Rizzi a win. So good story for him. Good for that team, that organization after kind of what's been a tumultuous few weeks here as they've been playing some rough ball. Rhett, I want to get to you on the Saints side of things, but before we do that, I'm gonna give you my first saucy nug. All right, ready? Are we ready for a saucy nug?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Presented by Wendy's. This is your first saucy nug of the day. The Atlanta Falcons, guys, what is the same conversation we have with this team every single spring? We do draft shows together. We've been doing them together for forever. We have pass rush, okay?
Oh, pass
I was
rush.
just curious in this one. Buck, they had 0 sacks in this game. Oh, okay, interesting. How are they at this year? 9. Oh, they've got 9 sacks, and we're in week 10 of the season. Grady Jarrett, Rhett, is leading them with 2.5 sacks. Matt Judon has 1.5. It is amazing to me. This might be I don't know of a team that's had a specific issue, non-quarterback related, that they have been unable to solve, like the Atlanta Falcons in this pass rush. It is bizarre to me that they can't figure that out, Rhett.
Ooh, that's right. What was it? 2 years ago, went and got Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State in the second round. Man, you got to go back to Vic Beasley, who has a 1-year wonder out of Clemson as a first round pick. Was that almost 10 years ago now?
Yeah.
And it's been a problem ever since. I mean, look, give them credit for trying to go get Matt Judon and make that happen. I mean, they clearly understand the problem, but there needs to be a bigger fix there, right? I mean, I think, you could obviously look at this year's draft and say, yeah, sure, Jared Verse would have helped, or sure, Dallas Turner might have helped, or maybe Laiatu Latu, but
keep going, keep going.
Yeah, we'll keep moving on that one. But they decided to go, for the future of quarterback, and I certainly understand that that line of thinking as well. But for the present day Atlanta Falcons, pass rush is vital to them staying in the tournament, getting into the tournament and staying there and having a run. Like, you're just not going to have it if you can allow, Derek Carr to sit back there and find Marquez Valdez-Scantling twice for touchdowns, relatively unfettered. That's just, and I don't know. I mean, you can't find it now, right? I mean, we're going to have to be talking about this again this spring.
Yeah, it's one thing that we can count on, like the 1st and the 15th. We're going to have to talk about the Atlanta Falcons searching for a pass rush because this is what they're able to do. And it really doesn't matter how they try and fix it. Free agency, the draft, trade, whatever it is, they haven't been able to get it done. But, man, it's the most important part. When we talk about team building, we talk about quarterback, then we talk about pass rushes. You got to be able to throw it. You got to be able to close games out. Their inability to close games out with the pass rush has kept them from achieving what many would say is like a high ceiling potential. I don't know where they go because Matt Judon can do so much, but 9 sacks, 10 games, that's not good enough to get it done, and it'll never be good enough to get it done if you can't get a sack again.
It's interesting too when you look at that, because they also drafted Zach Harrison, right, out of Ohio State, who was a very highly recruited kid up at Ohio State, never quite lived up to the billing as one of the next edge rusher. Mm-hmm. Bucky, you talk about this a lot. Like, sack production in college generally translates. Well, when you don't have sack production in college, you wonder, does that also then translate? I mean, because I don't know that we've seen it there from that side either. That's just one of those things to think about when we continue to evaluate players going into the draft this year.
Yeah, I think death taxes in a spring talking about the Atlanta Falcons looking for a pass rush. That's just certainties.
It makes it easy for mock drafts, though. It makes it easy for the first
but they're not going to take one. They're not going to take one. Yeah, but you can put one in there, and look at the comments. But look at the comments in that mock draft underneath it. Like, they're not taking it. They won't do it. Anyways, so we're getting.
I just need to get the first one out of the way.
The spring is a little bit off. Let's not get too carried away. All right, we've got plenty more to get to here. Let's be patient. Let's pace ourselves. All right, we're cruising to victory presented by Royal Caribbean, and that seems to be the theme for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know how. They find a way. They find a way to make a play. The other team finds a way to not make a play, but it's pretty remarkable the way they were able to get to the finish line in this game, 16-14, a game that almost felt like keeping an eye on it. I was at the Charger game, keeping an eye on that game. I felt like, gosh, it looks like the whole game was being played on the Chiefs side of the field. Like the Broncos were kind of dominating the game, but you got to kick to win it, and they can't protect. And the Chiefs make a play, block the kick, and they go on to win the football game. But Buck, I don't know. I guess the simplest way is winners win, losers lose. I mean, I don't know how else to describe that one.
Look at you, sounding like 50 Cent. I love it. It ultimately, winners do find ways to win, and the Kansas City Chiefs have been emboldened by the fact that they've gone back-to-back. They've won 3 out of 4. They know that if they play to the end, typically the other team implodes. And to me, it's very reminiscent of the Patriots and how the Patriots dominated for 20 years. It wasn't so much that they made these exceptional plays, is they were able to be consistent, and their consistent performance eventually translates to success. Great play at the end, though. I mean, when you look at this play and the way it was broken down and how they created a 2-on-1 opportunity on the end, not the wing, but to go through there, it's the execution of things that they've probably been working on since training camp, but just doing them when it mattered the most. Just great resiliency, great belief, great confidence. And DJ, here's the crazy thing. The more that they pull this off, the more that the rest of the team is looking over their shoulder at the end of the games, waiting for them to make a play. There's something mystical and magical about what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing, and other teams only feed into it because they can't believe that this team is always right there.
Yeah. And, finding ways to win, I think, is obviously the key phrase here for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they're down, right? They're down 14-3 in the second quarter going into the half, or rather, as they come out of the second quarter there. And so, like, when you look at it, you look at the way in which they're finding, ways to win. Yes, Patrick Mahomes connected with Travis Kelce, 76 touchdown, ties Tony Gonzalez most all-time franchise history, but then missed, on a chance to go up by a touchdown at the end of the game, and which allowed the Broncos the opportunity to come down and kick what would have been a game-winning field goal. But again, like, they held the Broncos scoreless in the second half. This team just plays complementary football, and like we talk about that a lot, offense, defense. You throw special teams in there when you're blocking kicks that way. Man, especially chip shots like that, 35-yarders, glorified extra point. So I just think, you do understand what it takes to win football games. This team knows that better than anybody. And they keep showing up and showing, that there are numerous ways that they can do it. And credit to them. And, they'll keep it rolling, until somebody can find a way. But right now, man, that Chiefs team is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, we've made those comps with the early Patriots Super Bowl teams with this version of the Chiefs. We've talked about that a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
20, so you have 28 completions for Mahomes in this game, 20 to running backs and tight ends, 20 of the 28 to tight ends and running backs. Like, it is a check down fest. It is a, playing for, field position, and it is bizarre how this team is doing it. I mean, I give Andy Reid all the credit in the world. He's not chasing stats. He's chasing wins, and they're figuring out a formula to get it done. I do want to give Bo Nix some love on the other side of it. Went through and watched him this morning, and on the heels, and we'll get to the Chicago mess in a little bit. But watching that back to back with Caleb Williams, there's a confidence and trust in what he's seeing with Bo Nix. I think he's in a good place with Sean Payton. He's attacking when he can attack. There's his feet are in the ground. He doesn't look as jittery as when I saw him in person a month ago. He's getting more confident and more comfortable, and the ball's coming out well, and he's making plays. So I'd be encouraged. I know they're 5-5 and disappointed they didn't get that kick to win this game, but on a big picture scale, I think you're seeing Bo Nix just get better and better, which is a great sign for Denver, and it's a great sign for their future. So some good news there for the Denver Broncos. Let's keep going through the AFC. If we're going to have the Chiefs as the favorite right now, I think Buffalo's right behind them, guys. Buffalo gets a win over Indy. Buck, it's 30-20. It's the best start to a season since 1993. Were you on that team? You weren't on that team, Buck. What year were you there?
That was the year before I got there. 94.
Okay, yeah. I knew it was right around your time. But this is where I want to have this discussion. We can get into this game if you want to, but I thought this was a more fascinating discussion. I was going through and watching all their pressures this morning. Von Miller's doing his thing. You've got Oliver on the inside who's getting pressure. Greg Rousseau's playing his butt off. I mean, I think he's got maybe 5.5 sacks or some of that. But his pressure reel, every week he's just getting all kinds of pressure. Epinesa has been really good. Daquan Jones was getting some pressure inside. And that's what I was alluding to earlier, Buck, which is, I see Max Crosby's unbelievable. Their team's not very good right now. Myles Garrett is a freak. Their team's not very good right now. But when I look at teams like Kansas City, and Chris Jones is great, but that is they all kind of do their part in that front with those guys. You think about here with the Buffalo Bills, all those names that I just mentioned. Detroit now, especially without Aiden Hutchinson there, that's going to be a collective group effort. But you can look around at a lot of these top teams. The Philadelphia Eagles have just a bunch of different guys that can kind of win inside and outside. There's no central focal point is what I'm getting at. And I just wonder if it's like we used to say with the offensive line, you're as strong as your weakest link. You'd rather have 5 goods than, one great, a couple averages, and a bad. I think we could almost have that same conversation on the defensive front right now.
Yeah, so it sounds like you would rather have a bunch of B's and B pluses than one A or A plus on that front line. And what the Buffalo Bills are doing is they are wearing you down in waves. And it's funny because it's not only them. You talked about some of the other teams. I think it was also probably some of the motivation for the Pittsburgh Steelers to go and get Preston Smith to complete a rotation that they had.
No, I mean, see, and that's not like that. Like TJ Watt's
and,
unbelievable, but that's Cam Hayward, that's TJ Watt, that's Highsmith. Now you throw it like these teams that are good have more than one guy that can do it.
Yeah, so they have more than one pitch of their thing. And so the Buffalo Bills are interesting because I think they've leaned all the way into the blue-collar mentality of the city. This is a blue-collar team. Sean McDermott back against the wall. People were talking about, hey, man, if they don't get this done, like, hey, how much longer on this McDermott thing? And I think they've just put their nose to the grindstone, found a way to just outwork and wear people down. And here you are talking about the Buffalo Bills putting up their best record since '93. Nobody had this on the bingo card that the Bills would be this good, but hats off to them. And you're right. This by committee situation with their pass rush has certainly helped them become one of the dominant teams in the AFC.
And then just taking a quick look at what the Colts are doing. The Texans are keeping teams in it right there, keeping the Colts in it in the AFC South. The Colts are sitting there 4-6. They're only 2 games back. But at what point are you going to look at this thing and say, okay, Joe Flacco is not giving us what we thought he was going to give us, and how long can we stick with that? And now we're yo-yoing back and forth quarterbacks here, and in a way in which we have a chance to be competitive and find ourselves in a playoff spot, but we're kind of going back and forth on the quarterback. Look, they're staying committed, at least until Shane Steichen says so, that Joe Flacco is going to be the quarterback. I mean, are you confident that they can get it turned around? Help when Michael Pittman's back out there. They can get some guys healthy there too, but man, you can't keep turning it over and expect to stay competitive as you go down the stretch here.
Yeah, haven't they been swept by Houston? Did I make that up? The Colts, have they played them twice already or just once already? I need somebody to jump in my ear and help me out with that one. But because that ends up factoring into this 2 game.
Yeah, that's more
yeah,
like
they were swept. They got swept by them, so that's a 3-game lead. Yeah. So they still got a long way to go there with that. To kind of put a bow, though, I'll give you a little saucy nug to wrap up Buffalo Indy here. We talked about earlier the Falcons have 9 sacks this season. The Bills have 12 players with at least a sack. I mean, that's pretty nuts. They are getting home with a lot of different players, so they're doing a great job as a collective pass rush. Buck, you mentioned there with Pittsburgh, Washington, talking about the Steelers side of things. Rhett, is there anything you would add on this game that, look, the Steelers end up getting a 28-27 win? Anything else besides, obviously, what we're talking about earlier?
Mike Tomlin cooking. I mean, obviously the decision to put Russell Wilson in while your team was winning, obviously still looms large. He's undefeated as a starting quarterback. The one thing that we talked about here on the Move the Sticks pod, right, was, the moon ball from Russell to Mike Williams. And sure enough, his first catch as a Steeler is exactly
game
that.
Winner.
in a big spot for Pittsburgh. I mean, take your victory lap on that one, bud. There it is. Bang. Got that done. And then, I loved his response to, all right, were you really going to go for it on 4th and 1 at the end of the game? Guess we'll never know. But I don't know. I mean, that was, that was a head coach saying, hey, well, let's give it a shot, man. Let's just go try to draw them off sides. If it doesn't work, fine, we'll punt it away, whatever. But then it does work, and you look like a genius. And poor rookie Jerzon Newton, that's a tough one. That's a tough spot. He knew right away. Obviously, everybody did. They're all laughing. The Steelers are like, no, we got it. I think they might have gone for it. I don't know. This Steelers team feels like, they're almost like they're a little bit less explosive, but they're kind of like the AFC version of the Lions. They've got some of that grit to it, some of that toughness. They find ways to win there, and they're getting it done. So credit to Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, credit to Mike Tomlin, but let's credit him for the quarterback decision that all of us were like, man, why change? It was such a good thing going with Justin Fields. But Russell Wilson has already, and I saw this, it won't be a saucy nug, but I'll put it out there. They're already saying that Russell Wilson has more touchdown passes than any quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger retired. In 3 games, he has more than every other quarterback that has played the position for the Steelers since Big Ben retired. That's bananas in 3 games that he's already done that. And when you look at the Steelers' offense with him at quarterback, the deep ball has come back. I see a happier George Pickens. I see Mike Williams making dramatic catches. And it's opened up this offense in a way that it wasn't wide open with Justin Fields. Credit to Mike Tomlin for being a coach who was not afraid to step into, I would say, a controversial decision. But it appears that it has made his team a team that went from being a playoff contender to maybe they're able to push and go a little deeper in the postseason because they got a quarterback that can close games out in the fourth quarter.
Somebody that has more time can go through this whole thing, but it would be fun to compare this iteration of the Steelers to the old one because I'm already thinking off the top of my head. You've got Big Ben, Little Russ, so we can start right there. You can also then come with you've got Angry Harrison, Happy Watt. Like there's like a lot of guys at these same positions that might come in different shapes, sizes, personalities, but they're all like the DNA is still the same. It was what we said about with Russ when he went to Pittsburgh. It was like, yeah, this is when they're good. It's defense, it's controlling the game, and then when Ben needs to make 2 or 3 Ben plays, he makes those plays and win the game. This is exactly what Russ is doing. It's the exact same formula for those great Steeler teams. And I don't think anybody, I mean, I know people have talked about the quarterback thing, but I just feel like when we're talking about Super Bowl contenders and who are the top teams, like I don't even think people even mention this team. And I know I saw him up close and seeing them in person this year. Buck, have the Jags played the Steelers this year?
No, thank goodness.
Okay. I mean, I'm just telling you, when you go out there and then you look onto the field and you see Highsmith and then you see TJ Watt and then you see Cam Hayward and then they've got Herbig, like Keanu Benton they're a nightmare to block, man. Like they are really good up front.
Yeah, I think the thing about the Steelers is they know who they are. No, and I think in knowing who they are, they understand how to play to their identity. And it's not pretty, it's not sexy, it doesn't get a lot of clicks, but it's one of the ways that they are able to consistently win. They play to their strengths and they don't worry about what it looks like on the outside.
Yeah, no, it's 100% who they are. All right, let's swing back over to the NFC. San Francisco, Tampa Bay, a good game, right? Was referencing all these good games earlier in that early window here. 23-20, the Niners end up getting a win. Look, I think you can find a lot to be encouraged about both sides of this thing. But I would think Buck, don't we have to give Brock Purdy some love first and foremost with the way he played in this ballgame?
Absolutely. You have to give him love because even though, the return of CMC is going to be celebrated and some other things to be talked about in the game, Brock Purdy being able to kind of shake off some questionable performances of late to be able to play the way that he played. You talk about this guy being able to do it because everyone always thinks it's the supporting cast that really makes him, but I think we have to acknowledge that Brock Purdy has some special stuff that works within this offense. And when he plays the way that he played, this team can hang with anybody. Now, they got to fix the kicking situation because they can't keep missing multiple field goals and think that they're going to win games. We also don't want them to keep missing so Debo isn't throat punching the long snapper. But if they can get that part together, the San Francisco 49ers certainly are a formidable foe if you have to face them in the early rounds of the playoffs.
I think that throw was my favorite that we just saw down to Christian McCaffrey on the right sideline there. It was just kind of rusher in his face, a little bit off balance. That's what, those are the kind of throws that make you go with Brock Purdy. Like, okay, yeah, no, this is not just, wind him up in this offense and let him go. Like he is autonomous he not autonomous. He's able to kind of make some of these decisions, make these throws, these big time plays on his own. And we got to give him credit for that. But the kicking thing was interesting to me, right? None of these kicks were gimmies. Well, not none of them, but most of them were, deeper kicks in the 40s, 50, missed 3 of them. He was 2 for 5 when they sent him back out for the game winner, which was Jake Moody's 6th field goal of the day. And right before that, it was Debo. There it is. Kind of yelling, hey, what are we doing here? Like, let's stop missing field goals. And Tabor Pepper, the long snapper, is like, can't be talking to us that way. Like, we're all doing what we can here. We're trying to make it. And maybe inadvertently, that ends up refocusing the specialist outfit. Look at Debo take 2 for 1 right there. Moody kind of caught the shrapnel off Pepper's chin. But look, it ended up working. I think they're no worse for the wear with it. And as Kyle Shanahan said, we'll go back to loving each other, when we land. And if it's not already fixed, now I'll go fix it on the plane. So I think this is kind of an interesting, moment of reckoning for the 49ers. They get McCaffrey back. They overcome some adversity. Purdy has a really nice game. And now let's see where this thing takes them in a very wild NFC West right now.
Look, I don't know if you know this, but Antoine Randall L., which took a swipe at Rhett for him not having a perfect hold. Like that was one of the more legendary plays in Indiana history before they went on this 10-game run right now.
No, not quite.
Is that not your era? Was that not your era?
DJ,
he was there. I was not. I was redshirting at that point, so I was on the sideline watching Antoine Randall L. juke everybody out of their socks.
Yeah, they don't put up with that stuff with the specialists, man.
Oh,
They don't. You guys aren't out at practice the whole time. I mean, it's just it drives people nuts a little bit with that stuff. All right, well there you go. That's a big win there for Jake Moody and the 49ers. It's time for Salute to Service presented by USAA. NFL legend Brian Dawkins recently participated in the Wounded Warrior Project Carry Forward 5K to help support and raise awareness of challenges some veterans face. Brian spoke with veterans around mental health and suicide prevention efforts like Face the Fight. Founded by USAA in 2023, USAA and the NFL pay tribute to all the current and former military this Veterans Day. All right, guys. New England, Chicago, two quarterbacks headed in the opposite direction. Drake Maye was excellent in this game. The numbers don't blow you away. 15 to 25, a $184 with a touchdown and a pick. But really, really made some big plays. Showed poise. Showed command. I just thought he looked like he's just continued to get better and better. Caleb Williams, 16 for 30, a $120. And I want to start. Let's start on the Caleb side of things, and we'll turn around and we'll give Drake his love. I tweeted this out, and Buck, I'll get your thoughts on it. But this was my tweet that I fired off after I watched this stuff this morning. Biggest issue for Caleb Williams right now, he's playing tentative. He's not cutting it loose. He's trying too hard to avoid mistakes. Then he's guiding the football. It's almost like it's been beat into him. Don't screw up. This OL isn't good, but that's a bigger problem right now.
Yeah, DJ, is one of the things that I think too often happens. We draft players and then we're trying to change them from who they are. Caleb Williams was always going to be a high-risk player based on how he played at USC and the success that he's had. What you try to get him to do is to play with that same mindset, but just to make smarter decisions where you just don't make the egregious errors. But if you try to take someone who is a gunslinger like that and make him a game manager, you take away all of the special qualities that made him the number one overall pick. Now, some people will say, man, that's what happens when you have a defensive-minded head coach that is in charge of a number one overall pick. But I don't think it's that. I think it's the conversation within the building. At some point, he has to understand where the boundaries are. And you have to live through some of those mistakes to get to the other side. And for Caleb Williams, you hope that they're able to do it with this regime, but it may be someone else who comes in there who teaches him how to toe the line without going over the line and when he can risk it and when he needs to dial it back, because that's the special Caleb Williams that everyone fell in love with during the pre-draft process.
I mean, I think the way you see what you're talking about, DJ, is just holding on to the football, like trying to find the perfect throw, right? You're trying to find the perfect play, just rigor shot. And I mean, I was sitting next to, David Carr on NFL Game Day Final last night. I feel like he's sitting there like itching his arm. Like every time we showed the highlights, just getting sacked. 9 sacks in this game. Like that's not all on the offensive line. I get it. They only finished with 6 healthy offensive linemen. Tevin Jenkins, unfortunately seemingly goes down in every game. And they're forced to shuffle the deck, and there's no continuity up there, and there's no continuity in the way that Caleb's playing. Like we had that 3-week, spell where we thought, all right, maybe starting to kind of figure things out here. And then all of a sudden we've just completely gone off the rails, holding the football, taking sacks. And then when he does get it out, I mean, one hops to one to DJ Moore out on the side. Like it's just, it's all contributing, right? They're all factors, DJ.
Yeah, you can see it. I charted it. I mean, I thought there were 3 clear beats up front. So of all those sacks, they were clear.
Mm-hmm.
You got a personnel issue. You got beat up front. You take the sack. The others, either there was a hot that was missed where they've got clearly they're sending more than you can block. You've got to get the ball out of your hands. You have to have that awareness they're coming. And other ones are just him not letting it rip. You've got one-on-ones. You've got to let that thing go. And then when you talk about like some of the misses, he has throws in this game. You can see him. There are instances where he lets it rip, and you can watch it. And there'll be quarterback coaches that are going to be far more advanced than me on this stuff. And I know they all put out videos, and you can watch them all. And I'm sure there's a lot of value there. I can tell you a simple thing, just from the scouting side of things. Buck, his arm speed changes. When you see somebody who's trying to be too fine, who doesn't want to make a mistake, they guide the ball and their arm speed slows down. He's a whippy, explosive thrower. And there's a couple in this game where you'll see the ball come out and it's firm and it's on target. And then there's other times you see him just guide the ball. He's just slowing it down, trying to guide the ball, and he has no earthly idea where it's going when he does that. And it's sad to see a guy who's a natural thrower be so inside his head as he is right now, because the way he's throwing the ball is not natural. That's not how he's always throwing the football. And instead of saying, because we can look at the defensive coach side of things. Well, the number 2 overall pick is with a defensive coach. He's doing great. The guy he played against in this game, the number 3 overall pick is with a defensive coach, and he's doing quite well. So you can't just say it's just a defensive coach. Now, I will say there's a difference between being a defensive coach and being a defensive dominant team. Like, we wouldn't think of New England right now, personnel-wise, and Washington as having great defenses. Whereas in Chicago, I could see saying, hey, we have this unbelievable defense. Just don't screw it up. Don't turn the ball over. Take sacks, drives that ends, and punts and kicks are good. We'll win games. Versus, hey, look, we got to score points to win games. We're going to live with whatever mistakes you make. But, like, hey, we're not holding people to 10 points a game. So you go out there and do it. And I almost wish that, and I don't know if this was the case, but I almost wish that if you're in Eberflus's shoes, Buck, if the mindset isn't, hey, we got a great defense. You know what that means? Hey, if you see it, rip it. Take some shot. Yeah, we turn the ball over. Our defense, we're going to get a stop. We'll get off the field. We'll get you back out there. But, like, we're going to live with some of that stuff because that's what makes you you. But be aggressive. Be that type of guy. And I say that as someone who I've seen in Jim Harbaugh being around the Chargers, Quentin Johnston. I've seen a player whose confidence was very low last year. And I've seen a coach just speak confidence into this kid. And I've seen him get so much better. And now it's like a totally different football player. And so I'm anti don't screw up coaching. And I don't know if that's the case, but that's what it looks like from the outside.
Okay, here's the case where subconsciously that message may be getting to Caleb Williams because you have Matt Eberflus who's basically coaching for his job. If you have security and you know that you're going to be around, you're more likely to encourage your young players to play through those mistakes. But when you are on the last year of your deal and the results are everything, it's hard to be process-oriented, even though you may want to be that for your young quarterback. And when the results matter, like they matter for Matt Eberflus because he's going to be evaluated at the end of the season, he probably is not encouraging Caleb Williams to, hey, go, let it go, we'll get figured out or whatever. But by not doing that, he's not getting the best version of Caleb Williams because the one thing that you can't do, you can't play the game afraid to be great. And right now, Caleb Williams is afraid to be great because he doesn't want to mess it up.
I think you guys nailed it on that. It just doesn't feel like they are in sync. Really, offense, defense, like along the coaching staff, and all of that is getting to the quarterback here.
Yeah, no, it is, and I've seen it. I've just seen it with other young quarterbacks. Look, hopefully they have time. They can get it corrected, and he can play more free, play more loose, and kind of get back to being who he was coming out. Because it's a rough watch at this point in time. Speaking of rough watches, the Jets have they're circling the drain, man, and it's been terrible. The Arizona Cardinals, on the other hand, I want to give them some flowers. I remember the Chargers going in there and losing that game and thinking, oh gosh, they blew one against the Cardinals. All of a sudden, you look up and the Cardinals now they're playing really well, and they've got some good wins too. When you go through and look at what they've been able to accomplish this year, beat some good teams. They've beaten the Rams, they've beaten the Chargers, they've beaten the Niners, and Kyler is ultra efficient with the way he's playing, Buck. I mean, this is a winning formula that they've found there. They play really hard on defense. James Conner can run it in this game. You saw he can make some plays the pass game as well. McBride's a stud. They're figuring out Harrison, how to use him. It's a team that's getting better. I think this is one of the best coach teams that I've seen this year. I think they do a great job with that staff.
Yeah, give Jonathan Gannon a lot of credit for those guys being able to figure it out. Drew Pelsick and those guys on the offense certainly helping Kyler Murray, I would say, be maybe the best version that we've seen of himself in this game at the position, because what you eventually want to see from your dual threat quarterback, you want to see them mature and evolve. And it becomes less about their over-reliance on their legs and more about selectively using their athleticism to create big plays when those plays are there or when they're needed. Kyler Murray is doing that, very efficient in the pocket as a passer, but every now and then he gets on the edges and he's able to give you things on either design runs or scrambles. And as this defense is beginning to play well, they're learning how to play complementary football. I can't say enough good things about the Arizona Cardinals and the way that they're getting it done. Underrated, flying under the radar. But this is a team that is going to kind of backdoor into the playoffs and potentially do some damage when they get there, because the quarterback is that good and the defense is playing really well.
That's a couple rookies, here in this game. Obviously, Marvin Harrison comes up with the touchdown reception. He now has 6 to lead all rookies after, it's kind of a slower start, and there have been lulls over the course of these 10 weeks, right, for Marvin Harrison, but he's becoming that player that you thought he was going to be. Don't look now, but Trey Benson is showing up, right? And look, James Conner is still kind of the guy in that run game, but Trey Benson, 6 yards a pop, and is showcasing some explosiveness, which is kind of fun to watch now, along with Kyler Murray, who seems like he can take it whenever he wants it on the ground. And then just another shout out to a guy that you and I, Bucky, saw in Frisco, Texas at the Shrine Bowl, Rabbit Taylor Demerson, the Texas Tech DB, who comes in a big spot and has a big time game, gets his hands on a couple of balls, and is one of their better DBs on the day. So that I thought, it's all kind of coming together, really, with some of these young players mixing with a nice group of vets.
Yeah, I've done a nice job there, a really nice job there. So Monty doing a good job as GM there. Monty Ossenfort, good dude who's brought in a lot of talented players. All right, Buck, your game. Jags hung in there with the Vikings. Not a pretty game from the Vikings standpoint. What did you see on the Jags side of things?
Well, look, I mean, the Jags side of thing, I think it's tough when you're a team that's struggling. You got your backup quarterback in Mac Jones, and Mac Jones certainly couldn't perform at the level that maybe they expected you would get when you had Trevor Lawrence in there. And I think the familiar theme remains the same when you're dealing with the Minnesota Vikings. The relentless pressure forces most quarterbacks and play callers to wilt. It's the barrage of overload pressures and simulated pressures and just trying to figure out all the stuff. It's not only physically taxing to take those hits, but it's mentally taxing to figure out what they're doing. And because there's such an experienced crew in the back end in particular, because you have Stephon Gilmore playing, Harrison Smith playing, you have Shaq Griffin jumping in and some of those sub packages, they're able to do some advanced stuff when it comes to pre-snap disguises and post-snap movement. Just a really put together defense. And I can talk about the Jags playing hard and doing all that, but the Vikings are going to be one of those teams that's a thorn in your side, not because of their offense, but because their defense is that good.
Yeah, no, it's not a great day from Sam and company offensively, but the defense carried them on that one. The Vikings end up getting a big win. Let's get to the game I was at, Chargers, Titans. Chargers kind of did what you're supposed to do when you're playing a two-win team. They just kind of handled them. They see the score there, 27-17. It wasn't really that close. The Titans got a garbage touchdown late in this ball game. After going right down the field in their first drive and scoring, then the Chargers defense just kind of stiffened up. They didn't give up anything after that. Great saucy nug, by the way. 7 straight starts, no interceptions for Justin Herbert. He's protecting the football. I was talking to somebody about this, they're talking about the offensive line with the Chargers, and I said, look, they've invested in those 2 offensive tackles, 2 first-rounders, 2 top-tier guys with Slater and then with Joe Alt playing the way he's playing. But I'm like, even the interior, you look at some guys there. Zion Johnson was a high pick, but Bozeman didn't cost much as a free agent. You had, as you see in this tape here, Jamari Sawyer filling in for Trey Pipkins at guard. I mean, it's not like this is like 5 all-pros all the way across the line, but when you look at it, I mean, the way they throw the ball, like 18 times in this game. So you throw it 18 times. Let's say 6 of those are off play action where you've got an extra blocker. You've got another 3 or 4 screens baked in. You move the pocket on boots for another 2 or 3. Like, he's not asking these guys to sit there and hold up and pass pro for 45, 50 snaps. And that's what the Chargers offense has been since Herbert got there. So you saw it with the way he was running in this game. He's going to be fresh coming down the stretch in the second half. And now when you find yourself in this portion of the schedule where they have coming in Cincinnati on Sunday night, followed by the Ravens on a Monday night, they're going to have to ask more of Justin Herbert. But I think being able to preserve him in games like this, they haven't been able to do that in the past. So a good win there for the Chargers. All right, Rhett, this is a game I knew you were super excited about. It's the last one we have here, Giants-Panthers. Your thoughts?
Man, it's just a tough watch with the Giants offense, and it does make me wonder, like, where did things go? 2 years ago, we're talking about this Giants team making a playoff push and winning a playoff game with, a lot of the same faces and some that aren't there that are, like Malik Neighbors, who's, probably better than who was there at the time. Tyrone Tracy has fallen into a nice role here, but, unfortunately, there's one kind of turnover he's directly involved with, and the other one was just, man, you just feel for it. The first play of overtime, and they just cough it up. I mean, that's kind of been the story of the Giants season. It just makes you wonder, like, they have been preaching patience there in New York, especially with Daniel Jones, and now Brian Daboll is saying, when directly asked, we're evaluating everything. And that's a hard place to be for a Giants team that was in the postseason 2 years ago.
Yeah, and it's also, Buck, a little bit of a warning sign for some of these contracts. I was at a wedding this last weekend, and so you're at a wedding, you're talking to a lot of people, and you get into a lot of stories about how you met your spouse and all this kind of stuff. And the topic came up of like, yeah, we just knew, like when we were together, we just knew this was your person, And I thought, it's kind of like a quarterback. Like if you have to ask yourself, is he worth the second contract? If you have to debate that, you probably shouldn't marry that person. Yeah, you probably shouldn't marry that person. And I think of, that's one of those conversations that took place. So we'll see. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to maybe look at somebody else also because of the injury guarantee with the contract. So we'll see what they do when they get a chance to reevaluate. But I have yet to hear a coach say we're going to reevaluate everything and then decide, you know what, we're actually better than we thought. We're going to stay. We're going to stay the course. We're going to stay the course there. Don't recall that ever happening. All right, we got through all the games, boys. Nice work. This was a fun one, Week 10. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. We will see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.